join me behind the wheel of a 2009 Hyundai Coupe S3, which was one of the very last editions of this car, and 2009 was one of the very last model years. In fact, I think they'd actually stopped production by 2009, so this really is one of the last examples of a Hyundai Coupe, and it's also one of the nicest examples, both in terms of its specification and styling, but also this particular car, you're talking low miles, just under 52,000 miles, and just in excellent condition. So it's a really good example of one for me to tell you a little about this car. The Coupe came out in 2002 and was known as the Tiburon, or Tiburon as it would be in Spanish, which means shark, and I think that's quite a suitable name for it. It looks quite shark-like, this car, I think, especially in this colour. And on a day like this, with the rain lashing down, I think the shark would be quite happy. By the way, the common parlance for this car company in the UK is Hyundai. I know the rest of the world calls it Hyundai or Hyundai, as Americans would say. But here it's Hyundai, so you're probably going to hear me saying Hyundai quite a lot. Now, in Europe, in the UK and Europe, this car is simply known as the Hyundai Coupe. That's quite an interesting name to call a car. I don't remember Hyundai having Hyundai Saloon and a Hyundai Estate, Hyundai SUV and the Hyundai Coupe. No, they didn't have all of those. They had the Elantra and the Tucson and the Santa Fe and all these other strange names. But the Coupe, they just thought, well, what is this car? It's a coupe. Let's call it the Hyundai Coupe. What's interesting is that name is stuck. Like if someone says to me, I've got a Hyundai Coupe, you don't go, oh, which one? Which coupe? You're just like, yeah, that name is the name of this car, and it's always stuck with me, and I think anyone who knows anything about cars. Before I got in this car, I was almost thinking, you know what, I don't actually care what this car's going to drive like, because just look at the thing. If you forget that this car is a budget Korean sports car, and you just look at it and forget about that badge, forget about everything, how good is the design? They were saying back in the day, the journalists, when it was new, that it looked like a baby Ferrari, and I can see what they were talking about. The particular one I think that they were thinking about was the Ferrari 456, which was the V12 GT cruiser, and although it looks a bit like a Ferrari, you can definitely see that they didn't copy them. It wasn't like, let's just copy a supercar. They came up with their own design. It's just that they came up with a good design, and as it happens, Ferrari make nice looking cars, so inevitably it ended up having a little subtle look like a Ferrari. So this particular car is the 2-litre petrol, 16 valve with 138 brake horsepower. They also did a 1.6 litre, which I think is probably a little bit underpowered, because the engine in this car, the 2 litre, feels like enough for this kind of car. There's no point in having a sports car and then not having at least some grunt to match the handling and looks. So the other engine is the 2.7 litre V6, which they also used that engine in a few of their SUVs at the time. So it might be tuned differently, but it's got about 170 horsepower. I mean, personally, as a petrol head, I'm always for a V6 over a 4-cylinder, simply for the noise. I don't really care whether it performs particularly better or whether the fuel consumption's total trash. I would always go for a V6. Having said that, sadly for any car after 2006 in the UK, the tax bracket for a 2.7 is the highest tax there is, and it's like £580 a year or something, and I draw the line at that. This 2 litre is around £300 a year to tax, and I can deal with that. That's okay. It's not the best, and it's a shame that the government put in those rules, because it's going to start seeing off a lot of interesting cars. I think it probably already has. So initial impressions of driving this car, I mean, first of all, you get in and it immediately feels quite sporty. You're quite well enclosed. You've got a centre console which points slightly towards you, and yeah, you feel kind of enclosed like in a sports car and low down, but at the same time it's not claustrophobic in here. I think from this, what you can see there, you know, with this sunroof and there's a lot of glass, it feels quite nice and spacious actually, whilst still managing to feel sporty. The steering is meaty. It feels quite, certainly compared to any normal runabout. The gear shift is slick. I love it. It feels very Japanese, very Mazda or Honda, which is highest praise for a gear change. Yeah, the ride is quite firm, but it's set up to feel like a sporty car. It's not completely horribly uncomfortable. The seats are quite nice, so if you want a really comfy car, then obviously it's not the right one. The strange one is that the indicator stalk's on the right hand side, and that's very unusual these days. I used to see it on Japanese cars quite a lot, but I can't quite figure out why it would be on the right hand side on a Hyundai. I think the reason that a lot of Japanese cars had it on the right was the fact that the cars were right hand drive. It's actually easier to change gear and indicate at the same time. But in South Korea they drive on the right. They have left hand drive cars and they drive on the right. So I mean, maybe they were that thoughtful that they've put the indicator on the right on right hand drive and on the left on left hand drive. I'm not sure, but maybe one of you guys who knows can let me know in the comments. Everything's blue. All the dials are blue, all the lighting's blue, and it's got quite a, just in general, a nice minimalist look to it. So practicality wise, it's the centre console cubby's reasonably small, but you've got two nice big cup holders here with little arms in them to hold in the drinks. Some very narrow side pockets like this, very narrow side pockets. But the boot's massive. With cars like this, with it being a coupe but also a hatchback, you've got loads of space in the back, so very practical for lugging things. And the seats split fold as well, so yeah, you could basically turn this into like a little coupe shaped van if you want. You've also got a sunglasses holder up here. Oh, and this, you don't see this very often in cars, and I love it. I mean, no use on a day like this, but on a sunny day, you want to get that little patch here where the sun can peek through. That's a thoughtful touch. I like that. More cars should have that. It's got these three dials in the centre console, and they look kind of aftermarket, but they were standard to all Hyundai coupes, and they're a weird one because they're just a little bit out of eye line, so I don't find myself really being able to look down at them and see what's going on with them. But they do kind of look cool, and I think that's kind of what this car's about really, so they definitely add to the sporty nature of this car. So you've got Newton meters of torque on the left there, then MPG in the middle and volts on the right. I imagine the MPG and the torque figures are pretty much hand in hand. Those two dials will go up at the same rate. The more torque you want, the more fuel you're going to use. This car has been just a couple of subtle modifications. First one being this Sony head unit, and they've done the right thing and bought one with blue lighting, so it looks pretty sweet along with the rest of the blue. And then it's got some blue footwell lighting as well. Ambient lighting is all the rage now, and at one point in time I might have thought it was tacky, but I actually quite like it. So interesting way round. I've grown into liking that kind of thing, as long as it all matches and looks right. I mean, if that was green lighting or something, then it would look garbage. Actually, I think about the ride quality, it's quite interesting because it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It just sounds like the car is taking all the brunt of the pain for you. It's quite crashy and rattly, but at the same time it doesn't seem to transfer any of that into your body. So only when you're going over the sort of bumpiest of roads, which there are plenty of around here, I must say. This car is currently for me in the sort of sweet spot for age and price. It's not so old that you're going to start getting flaking rubber and problems in the engine that are caused by age. This car's 12, and the older ones might be up to about 18 years old. And the thing is, you don't see that many of them anymore either. So it's like, for me, I want an interesting looking car that's unusual, You don't see many of them, but at the same time I want it to be reliable and, you know, dependable. And also I don't like spending loads of money on cars, so this would be a good car for me. I'd quite like it. I think this particular car, this is the sort of very best example of one that I've ever seen, and you might be talking maybe up to $4,000 for this one, but in general, you know, you can pick these up from £1,000 up to right up to $4,000, and none of that is exactly breaking the bank kind of money, is it, really? So one issue with this car, probably to do with the age, but also it's this feature of the frameless door, which is always a brilliant feature on any car, I think. If you just got glass here and no frame around it, I always love that. But it doesn't drop down, the window doesn't just do that thing where it drops down a little bit when you open the door and then goes back up when you shut the door, and that would seal the window in a channel up here. Some slightly fancier coupes do that, but this one doesn't, and it leads to like a bit like misting up, like you can see here on a rainy day like this. It's not just unique to this car. I had a 1998 Ford Cougar and that did the exact same thing. When you're reversing, there's quite a big blind spot behind you in the rear quarter, and it does make it tricky to see where you're going, and also when you're pulling out of a T-junction, if you're at a bit of an angle or something and you need to look what's coming, it's very tricky. That's one of the complaints of the owner of this car, actually. He said that the blind spots are right pain, so something to be wary of. To find out what it's like in the back of the Hyundai Coupe, I need to enlist the help of my friend White Turtleneck JJ. I'll just ask him, yo, what's it like in the back of this car? Are you alright back there? Hi pal, yeah, no, it's not great back here, to be quite honest with you. It's not suitable for adult passengers in the back, certainly no one who's 6 foot tall like me or you. Yeah, I don't really like it back here. I'm to be honest, I wasn't enjoying all those twisty roads we just did. That was pretty unpleasant. Oh, and if we could maybe film, I don't know, a long wheelbase Audi A8 or something next time, that would be probably better for me, really. Well, yeah, all right. So to be fair, he's probably right. Don't buy this car and expect adults to go in the back. Just kids, just maybe kids and really short people. That's what I would recommend. So the 2-litre engine is actually really keen to push on. At low speeds it feels eager, like it wants to get moving. Again, adds to that sporty character of the car. The car gets quite a lot noisier at speed. You get a bit of road noise and then that wind noise from the tops of the windows. So pressing on a bit in this car, the steering still feels nice and weighty, but it's lightened up a bit from round town speeds. It doesn't have, it's not the most accurate. There's a bit of deadness in the centre. I can move the wheel around and not much happens, but then once you get turning into the corners, you can definitely feel the car gripping, and that hard suspension really helps keep the car flat round the corners. And then, as I said before, the 138 brake horsepower is plenty to enjoy yourself on these sorts of roads. So it's it could definitely be a fun car to drive. I mean, today's not the best weather for it, but the engine sounds quite nice. The brakes require a bit of a firm shove to get it to slow down, but they definitely work. Yeah, it's got a nice sound to it up at kind of 4,000 RPM. Starts to sound quite sweet. Now I'm not going to push this car too hard, it's not mine, so that gear change, I really do like that. It feels like a very short throw, and it's very slick, and it just slots in nicely, nice and easy. Well, it was fun while it lasted. Caught someone up now. Would I recommend this car? It depends on a few things, really. If you for a start need to carry more than one passenger, or any more than some tiny children in the back, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you need a reliable, reasonably economical car that looks superb, I mean, if you like the look of this car and you don't need to carry more than 2 people, then just go ahead and buy it, if this is the budget range you've got, because there's not really anything else that looks like this for the money, I don't think. And it's also, yeah, reasonably fun to drive and easy to live with, so yeah, why not? So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to Chen for lending me this car, and also to all of you guys watching who have clearly got all the way to the end, so a big thank you for that. And the usual questions: if you've got a Hyundai Coupe, maybe one of the early ones, maybe an S3, one of the different engines, 1.6, 2.7, I'm just curious to know what you think. What do you like the car? What do you think of it? And also, if you were thinking of buying one, I hope you've learned something, and if you have, obviously just remember to press that like button. Plenty more different cars coming, lots of new content, so if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, then obviously subscribe. That goes without saying, except it doesn't because I just said it. Yeah, just thank you very much indeed. There's just a police car there. There it goes. And I'll see you in the next video.